Hello, friend. This is Legal Design Thinking in Real Life, a live series brought to you by Lawyers Design School, where we help lawyers and legal teams to adopt the skills and mindset of legal design. My name is Hannele Korhonen, and I'm the founder of Lawyers Design School. Today, I'm here with Alan Rodriguez, a legal product innovator and an expert, and we're going to talk about all things productizing legal expertise and legal services, how you can create standardized, scalable products in this industry of special snowflakes and tailored services. And I must say that I'm really excited about this discussion as I think that we really need to see examples and success stories and inspire lawyers and professionals to move into this direction so that we can ensure that more people have access to legal help. And my own agenda is also related to shifting away from billable hours, and perhaps we can talk about that too today. Welcome, Alan.
Thanks for having me. It's a real pleasure to be on here with you.
It's so great to have you, and it's very early for you. Can you tell us where you are joining us from?
It's a little early, but nothing too overwhelming.
Yeah, but it's California, right?
Yes. California, yeah. Southern California, Pasadena specifically, but yeah, sunny Southern California.
Oh, that's nice. And anyone watching this live, please join the discussion. You can just say hi in the comments and let us hear your thoughts and questions about the topic so that we can involve you in. But hey, let's start. Can you introduce yourself if there's someone who doesn't know you? Maybe
sure
share
thing.
Your story.
Yeah, sure thing. So I'm Alan Rodriguez. I wear a couple of hats. For today's show, legal product specialist. That hat is usually worn by the CEO of ONE400, which is one of my roles here. And at ONE400, we help create products, sell legal services, and help optimize law firms through better business operations and whatnot. I've been serving the legal industry for about 24 years in a number of roles. One of the roles prior to founding ONE400 was Director of Attorney Services at LegalZoom. And from 2008 to 2012, I built all of their attorney fulfilled products, transforming them from a do-it-yourself legal solution, online legal solution, to a more comprehensive solution that involved attorneys contributing to better outcomes, which I think we'd all agree, attorney is best suited for delivering optimal strategies rather than do it yourself. Before that, I also ran operations for the Los Angeles County Bar Association. So I had some insight into, lawyers and their thinking. The LA County Bar Association provided a referral service. And here I'm going into this because it's great education for, I think, the subject that we're going to cover. One of the benefits of the municipal bars here in the United States is that they're able to share fees oftentimes with lawyers, one of the exceptions to Rule 5.4. And because of that, the LA Bar had run this referral and information service for about 75 years before I got there. And we had 75 years worth of financial data. And I could see the peaks and the valleys and the trends of how lawyers were selling legal services, and it provided great insight for me into, how much the industry has changed over the years and what we can do to optimize it. So anyway, that's where my journey began. A couple of other things. I'm also a SaaS owner of a legal product called simpleclient.com. So I own that product. And then I've been an advisor to a number of legal tech startups, board member to a number of legal organizations as well.
Why did you become interested in productizing legal expertise in the first place, or legal services?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm going to take a little bit of a walk down memory lane here, but, it started with my time at the LA County Bar. And so, I got the job right out of college. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know if your audience knows that or not. I also own a law firm, by the way. I forgot to mention that, Singular Law Group in Arizona. But at one point, I thought I wanted to be a lawyer, and I got this job at the LA County Bar Association right out of school. They provided a scholarship to law school, minimal amount, but it was a scholarship nonetheless. And I met some really great lawyers there who had suggested to me, said, hey, when I was your age, Alan, I was inspired to go to law school, but it was based on like movies and TV shows, not like the actual practice. So I'd maybe recommend that, you're welcome to shadow me in my office for a few days to really kind of get a feel for what it's like. And it turns out that the job isn't all that exciting sometimes, right? Like it depends on the practice areas and things like that. So I had realized that maybe I wasn't cut from that cloth. And it turns out I was a really good administrator. I was a really good operations person, at the LA bar. I was seeing success there. And part of my responsibilities were participating in like an access to justice committee, or trying to figure out like, we had hundreds of thousands of people every year calling for legal help that would go unserviced. And so I started observing, like there was this big problem in law, and it was this access to justice problem. And we would sit around this table. We'd have this really great committee meeting with nice wine and great food. And one of the committee members would slam their fist on the table and say, "Damn it, we need to do more to improve access to justice. Unfortunately, I'm too busy at $600 an hour to be able to contribute. So somebody's got to solve this problem." And so as an entrepreneur, I looked at it as an opportunity. I said, there's approximately 80 million people in the United States that either go with inadequate or no access to justice every year. And they're being ignored by an entire industry of people because they're focused on the top 20% of income earners. And so as an entrepreneur, I was thinking to myself, what a great problem to solve, right? Like, what if instead of
there's money on the table?
Yeah, exactly. What if, instead of trying to get the $10,000 retainer, or, whatever in the traditional law practice, the top 20% of income earners, what if we would try to pull $5 out of each one of the 80 million, right? Like that would be a very lucrative business. Low competition, like all the stuff, right? Like the formula that an entrepreneur looks for when solving problems, real world problems. It was also, in my opinion, a problem worth solving, right? Like something I can feel good about. So that's what inspired me to look out at ways that we can change the legal industry. And LegalZoom at the time was willing to do that, and traditional law firms weren't. And that's how I ended up there. But that's what kicked off my journey, is trying to do good in the world, but also make money, right? As an entrepreneur, that's what we're trying to do at the end.
That's a sustainable combination, because you can have a purposeful work and then also make money. So.
Completely, yes, 100%.
Oh, I love that story so much, because it gives the perfect foundation for this discussion, because it's all about access to justice, actually, why we are talking about this how you can and how you should, or why you should productize your services.
And can I make a comment on that?
Yes, please.
Oftentimes when the term access to justice comes on, some people immediately start thinking like legal aid or pro bono or low bono work. No. This is an entrepreneurial show here, right? Like what I want to suggest is, LegalZoom is now a publicly traded company valued at $2 billion, right? So there's nothing pro bono.
It's not pro bono, yes.
Yeah. So I just want to clarify that, there is a way to earn a good living and solve a very big, meaningful problem.
Yes. So how would you define productization in law? Legal products.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's
how would you explain it to someone who doesn't understand?
Yeah, so in law, we're all service providers, right? At the end of the day, and I think the productization of law is really more of a mindset, or is really more of a way of delivering services, right, that give it the appearance of a product. So, for example, you walk into a store, you look at a pair of shoes, the pair of shoes are very well defined, right? You know what you're getting by tangible feel, by the look, by the brand, all the stuff. And then there's usually a flat fee, right? There's no like kind of unknown quantity, right? That sort of thing. So the manufacturer of the shoe can predict what the costs are, right, based on the manufacturing costs, and then some margin. So I think like thinking of services in that way, right? So there are a number of services that we can define scope very well. There are some services where it's a little harder, but I think it still can be done. I think there are other things that we can sell in law. Like lawyers they have access to information that most lay people don't, right? Because of the way law is written, because of the way procedures are, it's all very complex, and lawyers are very adept at navigating that complexity. So selling information is a product, right? Like Wall Street does this all day long, you know, and so selling information. So productization in law is really, I think, defining scope, anticipating a level of fulfillment, maybe flat fee. It doesn't always have to be, but you know, packaging up something that makes it more easily consumed by the intended audience.
Oh, that's nice, because it's also lowers the bar to it does not necessarily involve technology, for example. It can if you want to scale it, but it's not. It's more like how you define the scope and the results of your service.
100%. And if I could speak to, like, I know we're going to get into this here in a minute, you know, but like, this isn't just a consumer facing thing. These are for B2B businesses. Again, it's more of a mindset, but the easiest example based on what you just said right now would be like selling consultations. Many lawyers charge for a consultation, but it's how you sell it, right? Like, you know, and so I give you a quick example. Orain, we see your question. We'll answer it here in a second. At my law firm, we've decided to not sell consultations per se. Here in America, like there's no highway in America where you're not going to see a billboard that says free consultation, no pay if you don't win, or whatever. So we don't do that. We don't want to compete with that understanding of that phrase. What we sell is an attorney on demand service. And what you get is a promise from our law firm. We have a customer satisfaction guarantee. We can't guarantee results in law, right? You know, it's unethical for us to do that. But what we can guarantee is that if you just paid $99 in our case, we're a consumer-facing law firm. If you pay $99, you will get a consultation with a licensed attorney, qualified and experienced licensed attorney. You will get greater clarity on your legal issue, right? A full understanding of what you're experiencing, the pain you're experiencing, and clarity around that. And then a strategy for moving forward. Sometimes that strategy involves hiring the law firm for full service work. Sometimes it could be a little coaching, right? And if you don't get those three things, we guarantee that we will give you your money back, no questions asked. And we've been selling this $99, you know, attorney on demand service since we've been in operation. And to date, we've provided one refund on that promise. And it was because somebody came in and it turns out we couldn't help them. We couldn't meet the promise that we make. And so we proactively gave that person a refund. But that's an example of like, this doesn't have to involve technology. It doesn't have to be a big change in a law firm structure, whatever. It's just a change in mindset. And if I didn't have a product mindset, I wouldn't think to offer a guarantee, right? Like, you know, you have these guarantees in all other industries, right? Like, we guarantee the perfect fit or your money back. We guarantee you'll love this or your money back in 30 days. And so how do we embrace that in law? Well, this is one way where we can do it and still comply with the ethical rules.
Perfect example. Do you want to answer the question?
Sure. Yeah. Orain, it's a great question. How would you measure client satisfaction with the productized legal services? I'll tell you how we do it. We use Net Promoter Score. So in law, right, we're still, well, in any business, word of mouth referrals are always the best source of business, the most highly qualified leads. And so Net Promoter Score, without going into all the details, measures essentially how likely somebody is to refer you to a friend or colleague or family member. And so every time, so in following through the example, when we offer the attorney on demand service, we send out a Net Promoter Score immediately following the consultation, asking the person, how likely are you to refer us to a friend or family member? And if we get a 9 or 10, we've done our job. Anything less than that is great feedback for us to learn how to improve. And that's how we measure this. And I think that metric, Net Promoter Score, Orain, applies to any commoditized legal service or a traditional legal service.
Even traditional, yes. Yes, for sure. I think that it's pretty clear that this is like this on-demand attorney on-demand package is very beneficial for the client because they know what they're going to get and what to expect. But how would you sell it to lawyers? What are the benefits for lawyers doing this?
Getting paid for their time, right? So like many lawyers offer here in the United States, it's very common to offer a free initial consultation, right? But what happens when you give something away for free, in my opinion, it's worth nothing, right? And so you may be used for free information as a second opinion, all these things, right? Like, and the goal for the lawyer is to try and take that free consultation and convert it into a paid outcome. And so what happens is when you're doing work for free, you're not happy. You might limit the amount of information you want to provide somebody. You might limit the time you spend on that call. And on the user side, they may perceive that as you lack knowledge. You lack patience, right? You lack empathy. This might be so it's kind of bad for both sides, right? But if somebody is willing to pay for something, they are more committed. They are interested in solving their issue, right? So they're probably a better client if they convert into a full service client anyway. And then you get compensated for your time. We're a consumer facing firm and we're trying to target that middle to lower income people. So we charge $99. I know attorneys that charge $500. And again, this is just one example. There are other ways to kind of do this. And I'm sure we're going to go into those in a minute, but people will always pay to eliminate pain. And there's only two reasons why somebody calls a lawyer to begin with, right? Like nobody wakes up in the morning and says, hey, today would be a great day to talk to a lawyer.
I'm going to meet my lawyer today.
I'm going to check this off my life goals box, right? Talking with a lawyer. No, there's only two reasons. They experience a compelling event in one of these two categories. And one of them is a problem, right? And lawyers are very adept at navigating this and helping provide solutions. The other one is an opportunity. Hey, I've inherited, this piece of property, or I want to start a business, right? Like, so either, problems or opportunities are the two reasons why people reach out, and people will always be willing to pay for accomplishing like a solution to a problem or taking advantage of an opportunity.
Definitely. What's the climate that you see around this? Is this a trend in the US or elsewhere, or is this still a niche for productizing the services?
Yeah, I'm glad to report that after 24 years in the industry, that there are a lot of entrepreneurial attorneys there, and I see this across the spectrum. I see this at the Law 100, and I see this down to good old Chris Johnson around the corner here, solo practitioner, estate planning attorney. So is there great big adoption across the industry? No, but more and more people are experimenting. I see more and more, like say small firms is another example. I see lawyers that are now starting to offer coaching services, limited scope work, right? So here's a great way to kind of think of products. 80% of litigated family law matters in the United States has one party that's unrepresented. So that's a lot of people. We're talking millions of people walking into court with no legal help. So lawyers are starting to pick up on this and are offering coaching services, right? So if you're going to go in there by yourself anyway, at least have somebody guide you, behind the scenes. And so we're seeing smaller law firms offer coaching services or offering document preparation work, or a library of documents, or subscription plans where if you're a small business owner, it costs a lot of money to use a lawyer to solve problems, but you can prevent problems by using a lawyer like fractional GC at a much lower cost. Things of that nature. So I'm seeing more and more, mostly on the small firm side, innovative ways to take on this problem. So I'm excited for that future. So yes, the trend is trending up.
Oh, but that's great. What do you think? Why is that? What are the factors that are driving this development?
I think in, say, small law firms that service small businesses, I think organizations like LegalZoom and Rocket Lawyer have done a pretty good job of commoditizing a lot of this. It's hard to compete with $179, business formation. And so I think lawyers are, by necessity, finding ways to service their clients in a way that makes sense for both them and for the client. I think that's one thing. But two, I think COVID really inspired a lot of this. And I'll tell you why. There's a Facebook group that I participate on called Lawyers on the Beach, and it's got like 15,000 lawyers. And the goal there is to be a lawyer on the beach. And it's really hard to do that when you run a traditional practice, right? When your only source of revenue requires somebody to come to your office, pay you by check, and you have to go to court and do something. And so this desire to be mobile and move around, like COVID, did away with a lot of offices. COVID inspired a lot of remote work, more adoption of technologies that allow you to remote work. And so that, like, I know plenty of lawyers that live overseas that are your neighbors now, but they're licensed attorneys in like Nevada providing services. And so I think there's more awareness over the flexibility that your law license can provide you with the right mindset, the right use of technology and whatnot. So I see that as a growing trend. I think for the large law firms, they're also they're looking for innovative ways to better service their clients. And there's a lot of work that big law partners do that is really just in support of the customer, not necessarily the meaningful work that they want to do, right? So you have a general counsel of an organization or a director of HR for a large organization that's calling the partner like, hey, can you tell me, we want to hire this contractor. We just want to make sure that they'd qualify, as a 1099 or something like that. And the partner usually answers that question for them as a courtesy, won't charge them, but that's not the meaningful work that they want to do. They want the big, policy changes, entering new markets and stuff like that. So to give another example, Littler, the largest employment law firm in the world, had come up with a compliance HR tool. They're saying, hey, how can we service these customers or other potential customers backed by the knowledge and the brand reputation that Littler has developed over the years, and then turn this into a product. And they created a wizard that they only charge $49 per use. So this is accessible by the florist, by the smallest businesses, but backed by the Littler brand. This is the same firm that represents, Walmart or some of the biggest corporations. And they offer this wizard that you can fill out anywhere online or through a mobile app and get an answer to your question about whether, this person would qualify as a contractor. So I'm seeing this across the board of firms of all sizes in all sorts of ways.
That is so truly happy news. Is it possible that this yearn for time freedom could be driving us towards the future without the billable hour? Is that in the cards?
I think so. And I mean, when you think about it, I'm sure you've experienced this, right? Like in your product work, where, at the end of the day, people who want to alleviate the pain they're experiencing, the problem, or take advantage of the opportunity, they don't necessarily care that it comes from a lawyer or a bot or a blog post. What they're really concerned with is it the right information? They don't trust themselves to make these key decisions, and they can read something on a blog and may not understand it and think they're right, but that little bit of doubt is what causes this friction and this inaction. And if we can eliminate that friction, whether it's a better piece of content, an app, a bot, or a lawyer, like, I don't think the consumer necessarily cares at the end of the day. What they care about is a reliable source of information and clear steps to move forward. And the more that we can do that as a service industry, then the better off we'll all be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the
Yeah,
more
and it's
money we'll
interesting
make.
because it's not like the client always needs the lawyer do everything from the scratch, but it may be enough that the lawyer has the 15-minute consultation at the end of the assignment or something.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So should we talk about some examples, some case study that you could share, or you have used design
Yeah.
thinking for productizing legal expertise or service?
Yeah, I see. So, so yes, there are some examples, but I want to talk about like a little bit about how we kind of approach this
Yes.
in every case, right? And on the design thinking side,
Yes.
and I'd love to hear your insights on this too. But I think when thinking about a product, it always has to start with the end user, right? Because at the end of the day, we're not building a product for us. We're building it to solve a pain or a problem, right, for the user. And to be able to do that well, to kind of figure out product market fit, and we can talk about some hacks to figure that out, the low cost way to figure that out too. But we have to kind of try to step into their shoes, right? So design has to be empathy driven. Products have to be empathy driven. And think about what is the customer journey here. What is the problem that we're trying to solve? How big of a problem is it, right? How meaningful of an opportunity could this be for us? So starting there, and when we do that, when we look at people we're already engaging with, and kind of think about their problems, like what happens to them when they wake up in the morning, what are the things that stress them at night, keep them up at night, all this sort of thing, then we'll find all kinds of product opportunities there. So I'll share one example. By the way, a product doesn't always have to be monetized for it to have a meaningful impact on a given firm. So I'll give you a small firm example, and then I'll give you a larger firm example. So on the smaller firm side, we were fortunate enough to work with the civil rights law firm. And the civil rights law firm have a reputation for doing great work on police abuse cases. And, they wanted to be able to help more people that are victims of police abuse. And we were thinking, like, how do we commoditize some experience, or how can we create a product for them that might lead to, that satisfies their need for business, right? But also helps the consumer, right? Aside from just, the lawyer representing you in the victim case. So we were thinking about it and say, well, there's got to be this information's got to be out there somewhere, the total, like FBI crime statistics, whatever. And so we did a search on the internet, and it turns out there's this nonprofit group of journalists, of just social activists that create this really amazing database of police abuse cases throughout the country, and it's updated constantly. So we tapped into that database. They use Airtable, so they make it freely accessible. And we created a police abuse crime map for the attorney site, and we designed the information more like an interactive infographic, so you could choose statistics by state, by ethnic background, by year, by all the ways that the data is done. So now this law firm becomes a source of information for people who are interested in this topic, right? And the tool itself is a product that people can engage with. They can use to cite sources. They can use for journalism, things of that nature. And so they become the first point of contact, right? They're engaging with people who are interested in the subject. So that could facilitate a marketing outcome, right? By being first point of contact. So that's an example of a non-monetized one. We spoke of the Littler example, but in the larger law firms, there are a lot of law firms that are selling access to information. And especially these larger law firms that have like a global presence, they have boots on the ground in different countries. So if you can imagine a larger company wants to open up a new market in Latin America, Europe, or something like that, there's a lot of things that they don't know, right? Like you don't know what you don't know. And so some of these firms have aggregated information of, that's usually just housed in a partner's head, right? and put it onto a website. And they charge subscriptions to access that information, employment statutes in Saudi Arabia, I'm kind of making that up, but like there's a lot of these knowledge bases that law firms are aggregating and starting to pull information out of partners' heads, putting them into a database, not only to educate their internal users. The product can also be used for improving experiences internally. They don't always have to be
knowledge management.
But this law firm was doing that anyway, and so they flipped the switch. They were like, hey, this is an expense that we've incurred to improve, to help train our lawyers. And they turned that expense into an opportunity. Say, what if we allowed external access to this knowledge base? And what if we charged a premium for it? Turns out they were right. So oftentimes the law firm may have expenses, for example, a paralegal who's very adept at, or some software, law practice management software that offers document automation, right? Like that's an expense for a law firm. But if you can then say, hey, we do doc prep work for X number of dollars with very little interaction from an attorney, only provided by mostly through the software and maybe a little tweaking by a paralegal, that could be a very profitable. You turn that expense into an opportunity. So these are the ways I think to think through these experiences. And finally, lawyers are very adept at identifying problems, right? That's part of the training. That's what they do. Sometimes finding more problems than solutions, unfortunately. But the point is, there's a lot of legal researchers out there that have already identified tons of problems that need to be solved. And, just kind of looking at them with a little bit of change, defining scope, commoditization, right? Like, how can I repeat this process, that sort of thing. There's lots more products waiting to be designed and built and sold.
It's so interesting that when you just start looking at it's exactly as you say, that when you start looking at the process and you start looking at the client and their interaction in a new way, then you find all these new opportunities for new sales and for new revenue sources, that if you just stick with the billable hour model and just offer the consultation and legal advice as always. It's so limited.
Can I share an example of like how somebody could just take okay, so yes. There's this research I read. I can't remember the name of the professor. She's a professor over at Georgetown University. She's done research on veterans' disability benefits. And I'm a disabled veteran myself, so the subject is a little near and dear to me. So it turns out that if you have a disability and you're an American military veteran, you're oftentimes entitled to benefits. So it turns out that 75% of new applications are denied by the veterans VA. And when those same 75% of applications that are denied are appealed by an attorney, turns out there's 90% of them are approved. And what that means is, so like, this is interesting data. She wrote this study. What that means is that 90% of that 75% were always qualified. It's just something went wrong in the application process. The veteran either filled out the wrong form, misstated the injury, or didn't, think to gather up enough evidence or whatever. But lawyers only monetize the appeal. They can't monetize the production of the application, right? And so there is no incentive, no financial incentive in their mind to help these veterans get what's already owed to them. In fact, the incentive is the opposite, to let them fail and then appeal it, because that's how you make money, right? So as an entrepreneur, I take information like that and I say, wouldn't it be great to maybe use an AI-driven service, right, to help veterans apply, right, to get it right the first time, to avoid necessitating an appeal in any case. And we can feel good about that. And we could probably make $50 a pop, right? Or whatever the fee is to help improve the outcome. And if we can do that, we've done good in the world. We make money in an automated way. Like we can make money in our sleep, which you can't do when you're selling time. You can't do that when you're selling time. So I look at problems like that. I look at how the industry solves them now, and then I just try to redesign, like make a better mousetrap,
Yes. Yes, the entrepreneurial mindset is really the key, so that you see the opportunities and not only the obstacles and problems.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting to me, like some lawyers don't think of themselves as entrepreneurs, maybe, right? But they are. If you started your own firm, and like you're the managing partner of a smaller firm, you are an entrepreneur. You're a law firm CEO, and your job is to provide vision and like destination, and to inspire the right culture. Yeah,
Definitely. If we go back to the time when you went to work for LegalZoom, what I'm really interested about, because they had the do-it-yourself product and solution at the time, right? And then you helped to build, because I think this speaks to many lawyers who are afraid of the technology, that the automation is going to take away our job. And I think that the LegalZoom example is really is telling that you are still needed. Your advice is still needed on top of the scalable stuff.
100%. I would say it was interesting. So I spent 10 years at the LA County Bar Association. I'd go to all the conferences. I'd had all my friends. And then from 1 month to the next, I took this job at LegalZoom. I went to the same conferences, and I would sit down at the table with my friends, and they would all pick up their plates and leave to another table. That was the enemy all of a sudden. But here's the thing, like LegalZoom had to fight every bar association across the country, involved in lawsuits over the rules of professional conduct, and they won all of them. But lawyers, they could do what LegalZoom was doing at the time without worry about regulatory issues or whatever. They could have just done it. But they chose not to. And here's the thing, like, in my opinion, you shouldn't pay a lawyer to fill out a one-page form. Like starting an LLC in California, for example, you can do that you can do it on the Secretary of State site for like $20. Right. And it's a single page form that's very easy to fill out. They make it very easy to start a business in California. You can start a business in 30 minutes in California, essentially. Right. It's about what it takes. So why pay a lawyer to sit there and do that administrative work? But here's the thing. Here's what LegalZoom didn't offer. They didn't offer operating agreements, which in my opinion, especially in partnerships and things like that, is a more critical document than the form admin, right? Like, sure, the form admin, that's the key starting point, but the operating agreement is going to tell you like how to handle things when the business falls apart, partnership disputes and whatnot. So if I was the lawyer, I would worry less about the admin part that LegalZoom was doing and focus more on selling the operating agreements, providing the strategy, right? The other thing LegalZoom couldn't do at the time was like, they would advertise, start a business for as low as $179. And then people would call customer service at LegalZoom and they're saying, hey, I saw your ad. I want to start a business. Can you tell me which one to choose? LLC or corp, and they can't do that. That would be UPL. So we had to pull lawyers into that conversation so that they can guide them. And so all we did is we made sure that lawyers were always delivering strategy, not admin. The admin was like that's what software is for, right? Document automation. And people are annoyed to pay, an hour of billable time to fill out like a form. People are happy to contribute that themselves. I mean, they're giving the lawyer all the information anyway. Right? They have to go dig up the documents and give it to them anyway. Why don't you just have me fill this out on a website and I'll just, and it's there. So people want strategy from lawyers. They want counseling from lawyers. They want a counselor, right? Like that's what they want. They want a guide. They don't want to pay $300 an hour to fill out a form, that could be, it's knowing which form to fill out is the value, right? Like it's not the actual filling it out. So that's all we did at LegalZoom. We separated the two, and the lawyers found a better quality of life. Now they were getting paid to share information that existed in their head. They could be lawyers on a beach. They could go to Europe and still provide this, this advice and still make a lot of money. We were writing some pretty big checks to law firms that were supporting this program. One example is we had one firm start with just, I think, 3 lawyers. And by the time I left in 2012, they were up to like 80. So, and they were just doing the work that they found meaningful, providing strategy, dealing with the more complex issues and whatnot. And that's the way lawyers should think about it.
Yeah, they don't want to do the admin work. They are just afraid of letting it go. They're just afraid of the change.
Yeah, and that's so Littler, the big law firm, that's what they did with, they were providing these like advice and these consultations as a courtesy to the HR director. And they're like, hey, let's turn this into an app. The HR director doesn't really want to call me and wait for a call back anyway, and I certainly don't like, the 5 minutes of having to do this with them. Let's make it an app. Let's turn it into opportunities. So that way our time is better used on key strategic decisions and the more complex issues that we find more meaningful.
Yeah, and when the Gen Z is coming, they want to use an app. They don't want to call. They don't want to send an email.
Yeah,
they just want the information.
Exactly. So you lawyers that still have some concerns, let me tell you this. One of the key lessons that I've learned over the course of my career: consumers and businesses, they want more convenience. So even like outside of the products, if it's difficult to acquire services through you, like eliminate those frictions, right? So be online, do things via Zoom, accept, credit cards, like all the stuff, right? Like of a modern business. They also want pricing predictability. People are willing to pay for value and significant money for value. But what's difficult for a consumer or even a small business or any size business really is having money go into a black hole.
Yes.
Right? With no predictability. So they want that, and they will also want the convenience of doing things online on their schedule, but they don't want to trust themselves to make key decisions that are going to impact their life. Right? So that last part is where lawyers kind of step in and kind of help with that. If you could use technology to accommodate all the other things, or product thinking to accommodate all the other things, now you're really focused on, that really great, meaningful strategic work that lawyers should be doing. And so that's what consumers want from you all, you law firms. And so don't be scared of the technology. AI isn't going to replace you. Sure, AI is getting better and better at facilitating outcomes, but there still needs to be somebody that's driving strategy. And I don't see that going away for a long while.
Striving strategy and also holding hands. So,
yes.
Because people really want that. If they are making
yes.
the biggest decisions of their life, they want to interact with human beings.
Yes.
What would you say to someone who's watching and would like to get started with products, legal products?
Yeah, don't overthink it, right? So like, I find working with lawyers, their job is to think through every contingency, every possible outcome, right? Like everything. So don't overthink things, right? Like there's this concept that has served me well, and it's actually inspired by a book, 0 to 1, right? So not having a thing, then having a thing is like the biggest impact you'll ever have in your business, right? The biggest progress you'll ever make. And things don't have to be perfect, right? Like I have the saying, do, learn, optimize, right? And so you go from 0 to 1, you don't have a thing, you have a thing. Then you learn lessons, right? You learn through sales objections or whatever, right? You learn lessons and then you optimize, you improve, or you abandon. Not all ideas are winners. So that's the first thing, change your mindset. The second thing is, as we've already mentioned, learn how to be empathy driven in your approach to solving problems, right? And the closer you are to truly being empathy driven when understanding problems of potential of people you're going to potentially sell products to, the more likely you are to get it right the first time, right? Because you're really kind of looking at what are the existing problems that people have right now. What are the things that people are already paying you for? right? Like, how can I better improve that experience for them so I can sell more of that, right? The second thing is, your customers already know the products that they want to buy. So interview them. Don't be scared to ask people, like, what other problems do you experience in your life, right? Like, ask people. Like, lawyers don't usually ask this. I ask this as a product person. I regularly call customers and I say to them, I want you to think of the ideal shopping experience you've had, or the ideal vendor you've ever worked with. Like, what were you buying from them? And what about that experience makes them the ideal? And they share some subjective things, but then they also share these like measurable things, like, oh, I get this value, and things of that nature. And so I start learning what they want in a service provider, what they want in a service in general, or what needs they have in general outside of whatever service and those are always great ideas, the aggregated in those forms. Finally, learn the term MVP, minimal viable product, right? And when you kind of learn that helps you get to 0 to 1 faster. Don't, again, think like you need to invest $50,000 in bringing a new product to life. What we've done is, especially in services, it's much easier. You can commoditize, right? Like, define scope, and then just on a simple web page say, hey, this service sells for this amount of money, and then you can test that. Like, if people
it's a static website, no bells and whistles.
You don't even have to have the product yet. You just have to have the description of what the product is, and like, enter your information if you're interested in learning more. And if nobody's entering information, you either have a marketing problem or poor product market fit. But you'll know before you've invested the, $10,000, $5,000, whatever it costs to create that product. You'll know that first, and you just saved a lot of money. But if people are filling in that form, yes, I would love, please, can I get early access? Please, can I get early access? You might be sitting on a winner, and that might be worth significantly more investment.
Yes. MVP, magic letters.
Yeah. So there's another question here. What problems similar to the VA application do you see? What obvious gaps exist between a product and legal need? I'm seeing it with student lawyers creating apps. That's a great question. Man, there's all sorts of problems. I'm not even sure where to get started, but I'll tell you this, like, I'm not going to give you the specific product idea, but I'm going to give you the tools to learn how to think about them, right? There's a couple of products. There could be products that are like pop-up stores. You ever see this, like during the holiday season, there's a pop-up store that just sells, Halloween stuff or Christmas stuff, right? And then they go away. There are certain services in law that can happen. So for example, DACA here in America was deferred action for childhood arrivals. Was the thing like during the Obama era, and he was going to enact DACA, and people could apply, and there was a limited window. So we saw that legislation coming down the pipe. It was approved. We launched a website to help people with DACA applications. We knew that it was a pop-up. We knew that like it was limited time. There was very few qualifications, that sort of thing. But we did that, and we sold, I don't know, $55,000 worth of product. They were just basically help filling out these DACA applications for people who are qualified. So there are trends like that, like to tie back into this student loan lawyers creating apps. I mean, there's a lot of student loan forgiveness now. Maybe that's not one that I would sink my teeth into or something. Like, I don't know, but there's all sorts of problems. There are, family law is a big problem. Small businesses, right? When you think of like small micro businesses, they have ongoing legal needs, but the market isn't designed to service them. So the product could just be like making services more affordable. So like a subscription-based service, maybe you're selling subscriptions at $149 a month for access to information, consultations, right? Or access to common forms that most small businesses need, NDAs, lease agreements, contract reviews, bill collection letter, demand letters, things of that nature. There's a company, I'll share this in Arizona, that's now selling demand letters at scale. Like that's the one thing that they do. They just send out demand letters. There are like small claims, fulfillment services. There's all more complex products. But I like this example because the demand letter is always the first step, right? In any type of dispute going forward, like whether it's small claims or more complex. And they said, hey, we're going to get in front. You know, everybody's wanting to service the back end, but we're going to get in front and service, you know, the front end by sending out demand letter at a very low fee. Another example I'll share with you, in the United States, there are approximately, I think, I can't remember, 1.4 million divorces annually or something like that, right? And we know that 40% of divorcees and widowers are going to remarry within 3 years. So selling prenuptial agreements, if you're a family law firm, right? Like if you do divorces, 40% of your divorcees are going to remarry within 3 years. You should be selling prenuptial agreements to them at year 2.5, right? So like just kind of understanding your consumer, understanding like how this kind of works, the lifetime value of a potential consumer, and then you can find things to sell them along their journey in life. And the final stat I'll leave you here is the average American experiences 1.8 legal issues per year. So about 2 legal issues per year. So there's lots of stuff we could be selling people at least twice a year.
There's a huge blue ocean waiting for lawyers to tap into.
Yeah.
Like 70 to 80% of the people are just not using any legal services whatsoever. So
Yeah. So just look around and see where people are hitting these walls, and those are the products that you need to build. We need more of them for sure.
Yes, for sure. Thank you so much for being here. Before we go, tell us, what are you currently working on, and where can people find more about you and maybe even connect?
Yeah. Well, you can find more about me at one400.com. That's one400.com, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Those are the 2 best places to find me. You know, at One400, we're always working on various projects. Again, we acquired a company, simpleclient.com, which is a legal SaaS company that helps law firms provide subscription services, get paid for consultations more easily, things of that nature. So that's one of the projects I'm working on. I'm also helping divorce.com with some commoditized work, including family law attorneys, to better improve that service. Not better improve, but rather enhance the offering that you know, by connecting attorneys with an automated product. We're helping a lot of law firms, you know, acquire more business, sell services differently, automate more services. Yeah, I really enjoy what I do.
It shows. It's
Yeah.
been so wonderful to speak with you. Thank you so much for taking the time to wake up early and join me.
My pleasure, Hanel. This was great.
Thank you. And thank you everybody for watching. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.